There is one question, though, that has been raised in different forms by several people who represent a very significant layer of U.S. institutions, and therefore I'm going to ask Lynn that question, and that will be the last question that we have time to entertain this afternoon, because I think Lynn's answer is not going to be a two-sentence one. But basically, the question as formulated is this. Lynn, as we know you know, since Obama's vacation up there in Martha's Vineyard, he was visited by a parade of leading Democrats representing really all factions of the Democratic Party, who all brought him the same message, which was that a significant shift in his policy and outlook was necessary if, in fact, any semblance of orderly governance was to proceed. And people gave him a very sober view of how he's viewed by the U.S. population and how he is viewed by U.S. institutions. Now, in the wake of that, and in the wake of some direct confrontations with the U.S. population, we have witnessed a variety of developments. One is obviously the reorganization of Obama's economic team, which was signaled by, probably most significantly, the exit of Larry Summers, but which also is related to increasing denunciations of Peter Orszag, to statements by Obama and communications that Obama has engaged in which he is indicating that he doesn't understand where the idea that he was against Glass-Steagall came from, and that, in fact, during the presidential campaign, he campaigned on the platform of Glass-Steagall, and in fact campaigned for greater economic regulation. It's also the case on economic policy, obviously in some attempt to respond to the demands of the population as the elections draw near. He has stepped up the schedule for the meeting of the Doomsday Group, and now apparently Geithner is convening their first meeting on October 1st. There are other things that could be referred to, the bringing in of Elizabeth Warren, which had been strenuously opposed by Obama's economic team. But even beyond the question of economics, we know now that Rahm Emanuel is leaving in October to run his, presumably a mayoral campaign in Chicago. It came out yesterday that Axelrod would be leaving. And for many of us who were part of that parade of visitors to the president while he was in Martha's Vineyard, we have arrived at a certain point of guarded optimism that, if for no other reason than a desire to survive and protect his legacy, even if it is as a one-term president, that we will see an increasing shift in Obama's policy. Now, we qualify this optimism by saying that it's guarded, but something that we wish to pursue. You are normally extremely optimistic, yet it seems that you have rejected the idea that in the terms of one of your spokesmen, that this zebra will change its stripes. That was me. I said that on the LaRouche show. So really, we'd like you to comment on this. Why do you think it's impossible to see change in this context?
On the 11th of April of 2009, I presented my summation of my conclusions on the personality of the president, his clinical state of mind, and I've been proven right ever since. He's never deviated from what I anticipated he would do. I would say that any other view, from my standpoint, would be a very foolish one. Any contrary estimate would be extremely foolish. There's no possibility of that. You're dealing with a type which is well known in history, particularly in psychiatric history. It's a type of the failed personality which, given a situation of great authority, will do exactly what the Emperor Nero did and what Adolf Hitler did, who are both failed personalities of this type. And that's the way Obama is going to go. And that's why I've said the major thing you have to worry about, we cannot have him commit suicide. Because in the history of these types, they tend to commit suicide under such conditions. And that's, I've insisted, this president must be watched because we're reaching the point where he's likely to commit suicide. And we don't want a suicide of a president at this time of crisis. We don't like suicide in general, but in that in particular. There is no hope that Obama would ever reform for the better. Absolutely not. He has no personality, not a real identity. He has only a fake personality. And there's much evidence as to what may have contributed to this, but what I saw, and I saw in terms of his policy, then in April of last year, this guy's no change, only for the worse. The plunger goes down, and the explosion goes off. And what we have to worry about is the effect of an assassination or a suicide of this president. That should be our biggest concern, as far as he's concerned. Any other diagnosis, forget it. I've seen this thing, I know exactly what he is. And I've seen a lot of this in my life, well, my experience and so forth, with personality problems. He's not going to change for the better. The only way he's going to change for the better is by being safely out of office. Then under management, he might make it, personally. But as long as he's involved with the presidency, there's no chance. He's a typical echo of the Emperor Nero and Hitler. And there are a lot of other cases like that, but these are the two most conspicuous ones, the ones I referred to. And he has never deviated from the estimate of him and his behavior, which I gave publicly on the 11th of April of last year. Not a chance. The problem is we've got to get him out. And the problem is politicians are trying to act like politicians, of trying to negotiate something. And there's some things that are not negotiable. Lots of things can be negotiated, but some things cannot. This is not a negotiable situation. Either we get this guy out now, or kiss the United States goodbye while you still can.